I'm going to be breaking down my writing process for chapter 274 of Bribob in this video. So I'm going to go over all the decisions I made, my little storyboards here, what made it into the final cut, and why I framed everything in the way I did. So I'm going to try to go over all that. So here's my little storyboard of where I started with. And I knew from the beginning what I wanted before I started drawing out my little thumbnails. And that was that what happened at Carpeach's castle, where Stan was murdered and Guts had the chance to save Stan, but chose to save Casca instead, that was something that Guts was not going to bring up. He was just gonna, let it sit as is. And then Stan has been, in the background, silently tolerating this change in their dynamic where he feels, less important. So, of course, after Stan was murdered, there was the God Amalgamation reset that sent all the characters physically back to Chapter 1, but they still remember everything that happened in Bribob. So when we start this chapter, I knew it was going to have to start with Stan being forced to bring it up, because Guts wasn't going to. So I wanted him to look pensive and kind of upset. So I knew that was at least going to be the first one. So that actually made it from the original storyboard. And then, because this is a very dialogue-heavy chapter where there's not that many props or other characters or anything else getting in between Stan and Guts in this conversation, I wanted to make sure that, all the dialogue hit. It did what it needed to do. I wasn't spending too much time with them just talking for no reason. So I wanted every scene to make sense and have a reason for it to be physically put on paper even. So, I guess I'll go through the panels and I'll talk about what changed from my storyboard to the final comic. So we see Stan looking down, pensive and grumbly. So he's like, "You," and then, this catches Guts' attention because Guts doesn't see anything wrong until Stan needs to bring something up. So he just has a little question mark. He's like, "What's up?" And then, Stan's like, "Well, back at the castle, you ran right past me. You didn't save me first?" And this is the part where I had the most rewrites, because I was very conflicted on how much Stan was going to be bitter at Casca, or if he was going to be bitter at her at all. Because Stan is in the know of what happened to Casca, kind of. It's a little murky. It's a little murky in Bribob. So I chose for it to be centered on Stan and not for him to, have any grudges against Casca. So, yeah, I changed it from "you saved Casca first" to "you saved that lady before me first" to finally just, "why didn't you save me first?" And Stan is motioning to himself, and he has this he looks, anxious, upset, but open and willing to hear and wanting to communicate with Guts. That's what I wanted this look and body language to be expressed. Okay. And then this is another big change. Guts responds "well, of course, Casca will always come before you." And he's looking down at Stan with a little frown. And in the original storyboard, I had him kind of smirking. But I was thinking about the version of Guts that shows up in Bribob and what stage he's at. And this version of him was just going to be pretty serious and deadpan about it. Yeah, you're not going to come first. And so this shocks Stan, so I have him just have another little exclamation bubbles. And then, what? Then why are we dating? So this is the part of Bribob where the parody element comes into full effect, where the version of Guts in Bribob is a super loser. He gave Casca to Twilight Sparkle, and so she's safe from the any monsters that would follow her from the sigil, because of the magical barrier. So Guts in my story has the ability to drift off and become an alcoholic and a bum and he's allowed to have that route because he's like given up. So in this version, this alternate universe of Guts, he does have this like relationship with Stan because they both found each other at an AA meeting. So, Stan's just, to the point, like, well, if you care about her more than me, like, why are we together? So I wanted to have him have his arms up, just kind of confused, and I still want him to have that, like, anxious insecurity underneath it, because for someone to still be entertaining this conversation, instead of just walking away and having some self-esteem or self-respect to say, like, okay, if you're going to say that to my face, I'll just leave. So Stan does not have that, at least in this moment in my comic. So yeah, like, why are we dating? So that one also was right from the storyboard to the final comic. And then, Guts is a very strong character in certain ways. And in the original manga, when Farnese, gets on her knees and begs to become part of, like, Guts's troop or, like, his party, he's very much like, well, I'm going to do what I want. And if you want to stay or not, that's your problem. So I wanted to keep that energy up in my comic. So I have him just be very blunt about his feelings. Like, yeah, if I could be with Casca, I'd dump you in a heartbeat. And then I have Stan flailing his arms here like, well, this isn't helping your case. Like, he really wants this to work, and he's even telling him, like, you need to make a better case for me to be convinced to stay with you. I also wanted Guts' head to be obscured, and, like, the differences in their height playing into how, like, weak and small Stan feels in this moment. So yeah, this isn't helping your case, dude. And then this is it. You either take me as is or leave. He, like, doesn't care. I'm not keeping you tied to me. You have free will. So this is actually a callback to the manga where Guts actually does tie Casca with, like, a rope to him while he's trying to protect her and, like, to keep her at base so she doesn't wander off. So that was kind of a callback to that. And then there's this tense moment where the audience doesn't necessarily know, or this is me assuming. I'm trying to put myself in my audience's shoes as much as I can so I can make the best story I can. So that's like, well, what's Stan gonna do in this moment? And then this is one of my favorite panels from this chapter. So Stan's like, I don't have free will, kind of like flirty and blushing, and he crosses his arms. And Guts is like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you have my heart wrapped around your goddamn finger. So this is Stan doubling down as well and just kind of fully accepting that he doesn't mean as much to Guts as he wishes he does, and he's, not first priority. But his feelings are still so strong, he can't help but stay. So I have him, just, I don't know, this felt like the best pose where he's reaching out a hand to Guts. His body language is, like, still towards him, but still kind of hurt and upset a little bit, And then this moment also breaks the tension where Guts puts his hand around Stan's. And even though this is what Stan wants, he's still, like, flustered at this move. And then his whole facade falls apart, and he's just so happy that to have scraps, basically. He's happy to have anything from Guts, right? And then Guts is happy because, that smile is to show that even though he was putting on this front of, like, I don't give a fuck, you can stay or go, but it would be cool if you did stay. That kind of vibe, that kind of, like, almost like situationshipy vibe. And so then we have a scene change. So we go from this purple background to this, like, lush forest. And then I always make sure to have Stan hopping. Like, it helps always to break the tension. It always helps to show how silly it is to have these two different art styles, like, coincide. Like, the South Park characters that like hop around instead of walking in the stop motion style, and then like Guts like fully walking next to him. And it's never addressed. No one ever talks about like the different art styles, or Stan has like a abstract circle for feet. Like no one ever says anything about it, and I just love it. So we can see the resolution from the conflict where they're holding hands and they're happy again, right? And then this moment's big. So then Stan looks down and is like, I never really saw where that Griffith portal went. And Gus is like, the what? So this has been a huge plot point in Bribob where Stan didn't show Guts the letter that he received from Carpeach to go to Griffith's funeral. And this has been ongoing for like maybe 100-ish chapters or more, where there is this dramatic irony where the audience knew but Guts didn't know. So Griffith's corpse was turned into another portal, and that's where Twilight and Greg were able to contact the core of the God Amalgamation and reset the universe. This is like a big moment where it's revealed that Guts even knows that Griffith died in the original timeline. And then this panel, it's another like jump cut to what's happening to Griffith in the new timeline. So Griffith is freaking out, and he's dressed as the Joker because he had the castle, he had everything, he died, and now he's reset and he has nothing again. So he's just like, gripping onto the sides of a mirror and staring at himself. So I thought this was a good ending panel. I'll do another video breaking down the art style and how I painted these.